Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar. We are pretty excited about this. Uh, this is the first time we're talking about a product compass. So Vocareum is going through, for those of you who know about us, we have gone through one of the largest product refresh in a long time, largely because of AI, as you can imagine. So today we'll be talking about it specifically our effort to close knowledge gaps with Compass. So, quick agenda. I'm Sanjay Srivastava. I'm the founder and CEO of Vocareum, and I will spend 10 minutes talking about Vocareum in general. So, give you a quick overview for those of you who are not familiar with Vocareum, what we are about, and then hopefully segue into our latest initiative. And after that, we will dive into demos. First, it will be focused on math proficiency, which is and she also introduced the product. It Portia Restuccia, who's a product manager. She'll go for 20 minutes, and then we'll talk about another application of our personalized learning platform, which is for cloud certification. And Mary Gordonier, who is our solution engineer, is going to talk about it. And then we'll open it for Q&A. But you can, anytime during the presentation, please go ahead and ask questions through the Q&A functionality. There are quite a few of us from Vocareum on the webinar, so we should be able to address questions as we are doing the presentation. So with that, just a little bit about Vocareum. We've been around for more than a decade. Our goal was to build the last mile solution to deliver cloud resources to education. So it was becoming pretty clear that often for education, especially in higher ed and professional, it was not going to be enough to have the student have resources only on their personal laptops or even often in your university computer centers. You have to deliver resources from the cloud, which presented a unique set of challenges if you want to do that in education context. We've been very fortunate that we have a fairly substantial presence with about 4 million learners worldwide. We are in 7,000 universities, and we are in 10, we have partnership with 10 major edtech providers. What we mean by that, that often when you are in maybe Udemy or Coursera, often when you're learning things like, say, cloud, especially cloud computing, you might be using Vocareum's experiential solution, our virtual labs, and might not even realize that because often these are white label solutions. I think I've already talked about it, our partnership with higher ed institutions that we are very proud of. We do understand that the labs do not exist in isolation, but they have to be, presented in the context of overall learning journey of the student. So that's why we have invested a lot integrating with the overall learning platforms. And often, if it's in the higher ed case, the integration through, say, Canvas or Brightspace or Blackboard or Moodle happens through LTI. But then a lot of cases, they have to be custom integrations done if the platform does not support LTI. We have REST APIs, which are often used for that. So in terms of our product, at this point, we are thinking about products in two broad categories, which are our sort of a classic virtual labs, which is manages access to workspaces. And we will talk a little bit more about what we mean by workspaces, but essentially in the middle of learning, maybe you're doing an assignment or maybe doing a project, you need access to some cloud resources, then we handle everything to do with delivering that. And Compass is our effort to bring personalized learning to higher ed. Um, and at this point, we are not thinking about these as two different products, but we are, as you will notice later on, we are trying to do a lot of integration because we believe that personalized learning is best if it is integrated with the experiential component. If your personalized learning companion can also know and help you with as you are actually doing maybe a coding assignment, maybe a math project, maybe a cloud computing, then that's where you can drive the most efficiency. So virtual labs, once again, there are three sort of categories. As a part of our sort of product refresh, we have invested a lot of energy in our AI notebook product. This is the product where if you are learning AI, then we deliver all the resources that you might need. And these resources might be Gen AI API keys to, let's say, a commercial model like from OpenAI or Gemini, or maybe these are API keys for let's say a Llama or Mistral model, which is being served by university data center. GPUs, that's becoming bigger and bigger deal. How do you deliver GPUs when you're training maybe a model training or even inference or maybe even you're building some RAG models uh, or and then also open source models. So maybe you want to teach as a part of the class, how do you go and fine tune a Mistral or a Llama model? So we deliver that. That's a part of our AI notebook solution where we are trying to deliver all the AI resources in one place. And of course, you can deliver compute using either Jupyter notebooks or VS Code. Cloud Labs, this is our, we deliver managed solutions for cloud resources. Today, it includes AWS, Azure, Databricks, and Google Cloud. GCP, and also you can deliver virtualized applications like VS Code, Jupyter Lab, databases, Windows applications, cyber ranges, and you can even bring your own custom Docker images or AMIs, and we will manage it, the underlying resources, delivering it, provisioning it, authenticating it, making sure that data retention is taken care of. All of them labs have learning features built into that, which could be pushing grades to LMS, auto grading, manual grading, leaderboard, team projects. They all now have integrated AI tutor and a lot of exam support. Obviously, there are a lot of details which I'll skip over for the lack of due to lack of time, but you can always follow up with us. Let me just go quickly to the topic at hand, which is Vocareum Compass, right? So this is we're pretty excited about it. We do believe that finally we can all deliver, which was the goal all along, is that how do you deliver personalized learning solution to the learner? So deliver them exactly the feedback they need, maybe the activity they need based on where they are, not because of the resource and constraints. So finally, I think AI helps us deliver the promise. And what is exciting about it, not only we have to deliver the product, but we have been working for the last 2 years. And as you'll hear later on, we are seeing some awesome results in a real world situation. Um, at the heart of what we do is we help build what we call a domain model or a knowledge graph. This, which is basically guides everything in our platform. So essentially, a knowledge graph is represents all the concepts and the relationship between them that you want the students to learn in a given course, or maybe master it for a given exam, or maybe part of a certification. So once we build the representation, everything is driven from this domain model. How we use AI. So I'm sure you're seeing a lot of this AI-driven solution, but our view is that, okay, AI can be used to generate domain model. So you might want to start with some document or even with just a prompt and help you build the domain model. You can generate learning activity. Once again, the demo hopefully will make it much clearer. You can integrate personalized tutor with the learning activity. You can drive assessment. The last part is pretty crucial, where we're trying to drive a lot of innovation, which is diagnostics based on learning activity. So we use the learning activity to get and use AI to populate what we call the student model, which is essentially a digital twin of the domain model, which indicates proficiency for the learner, and which we use that to personalize the pathways and analytics to the teacher, so they can focus on a specific concept where a class at large or a given student might need some help with. I mean, how are we different? I think we are focused on using learning science to drive student model. The efficient diagnostic from relevant student work, that's pretty crucial. We are saying that you don't have to just do lots of multiple choice for the system to understand what you know, but you can take things like handwritten work, your code, your text, maybe a long form answer to populate the student model. Our integration into of the tutor and the workspace is again very unique because of our lab sort of heritage. We can do a very tight integration of the tutor with the learner workspace. Focus on teacher analytics, flexible deployment, this is one thing, something that you have learned really, that we need to give you a path to deploy it really quickly. And I'm sure we'll talk about it. You can deploy start with the content library. You can even have a question bank PDF, or you can use AI to sort of deploy our solution. So you can deploy, again, there's flexibility. You can deploy only as a tutor, or only maybe you want to use initially to get a sense of some analytics. You can deploy in different like prereq in different modalities, the prereq reviews, test prep, assignments. With that, what I will do is, like, I've gone a couple of minutes over my time, so I will just hand it to Portia. And in the meantime, once again, we'll be on the standby to take any questions.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm going to start with the demo of the student side of what we were just talking about. So this is one of those knowledge graphs that really do anchor a lot of what we do in Compass. In this case, it's a stats graph. And this is the student experience. So as a student, I've gone through and I've answered some questions. I've started unlocking some nodes, and I'm going to focus in on this branch on the side here. So variance calculation right here, I've started, I'm developing here at 20%. And to get there, I had to unlock it through mean calculation and interpreting statistical data. And this is one piece of the personalization that we do through Compass. So as I'm answering questions on variance, it has the context that I've reached proficiency on mean calculation and the basics of statistical data. So that can all be used by the tutor. So with that being said, let's look at the actual workspace. Here's the question that I'm on, and on the left here is our virtual tutor. So we have a couple quick action buttons. I need a hint. This is actually pre-generated as part of that AI-assisted content generation piece. So it's been vetted, this first step hint. Explain how to solve this is a quick action button if students don't maybe have a specific question that they can click to get help from the tutor. And here we have the tutor's response. So let's break it down, calculate the mean, find the squared deviations, finally compute the variance, offering some follow-ups. You'll note that it's not going to give me the answer. So if I even ask, give me the answer, it's not going to listen to me. Along with the context of the question that we're looking at, where I'm at on my student model of that knowledge graph, it also has an instructor side prompt where it will say, like, I'm not going to give you the direct answer, but I'll guide you with a sample problem. So here's a brand new data set. Here's the full steps. Try these steps on your original data set. So it's configured. I actually have it prompting to do this. I want it to create a sample problem so that students can get that level of help, not get frustrated with the tutor, but still actually have to do the problem themselves. You can also ask conceptual questions. So what is variance, for example? And it will be able to explain some of the conceptuals behind the mathematics as well as the formula involved. So in this case, it's measuring spread, and then here's the formula. All of that then can lead me to answer my question. So in this case, this is actually a show your work question. So I'm going to use one of our features, which is speech to text, just to speed it up a little bit. So 10 plus 12 plus 23 plus 23 plus 16 plus 23 plus 21 plus 16, all divided by 8. And I think it is 8 if I count that out. Yes. So in this case, the speech to text is transcribed, and then I'm able to go in and edit. So because I had some English in there, it's not going to fully get that. I can really quickly edit my answer. And this is me computing the mean. I'm just going to submit. So I didn't finish answering the question, but I'm going to submit and see what the tutor tells me, because it's also configured to provide custom feedback. So here it's telling me, not quite, you calculated the mean, but you didn't complete the problem. And then it's giving me pointers, hey, here's your next steps to actually get to the variance. So those are some of the explicit examples of what the virtual tutor can do. Some other use cases that we've seen, especially for remote classes, just it being available 24/7. Students who don't have English as a first language, or especially if they learned this level of math in a language other than English, they're able to get direct translations, ask questions in their native language. I do want to note this forum thread right here. We do have a built-in forum. It can be turned off, but we have this as an option. You can also be anonymous on here for students to ask follow-up questions of their peers in a more traditional setting. We've also seen some really cool use cases of teachers kind of infusing some AI literacy into this as well, of commenting on the AI tutor's results and, maybe making comments on that, tweaking it, offering suggestions, or of course, just asking things like, hey, will this be on the midterm? So that is a very brief overview. I am going to go back and show one other piece. So this is question 1 that I've already completed. And here, you got that correct. Good job. There's also an instructor verified explanation. So what we have as context for the tutor also includes these verified step-by-step explanations, which really help eliminate hallucinations when the tutor is answering questions from the student. And you might note that this looks like a lot of math. I showed all my work, but I actually used another one of our features, which is upload from a file, which is also available here on the tutor as well as the actual answer box. And this is the file that I uploaded. So it's handwritten and it's actually able to transcribe that into our equation editor to then be submitted for longer form problems. So I do also want to quickly show that is how you would go through a mastery-based assignment, unlocking these nodes, but some other deployments include more traditional assignments. So in this case, we have a question group. Here we have 15 questions that as a teacher I've assigned. You no longer have that progress map, just a list of 15 questions that students need to work through. And some of those deployments include things like preview. So here's 5 questions before a class. Homework, here's 15 questions. We have exam setting integrations where you can also set a timer and have practice exam deployments. So with that being said, again, you can put any questions into the Q&A feature, but I am going to now switch over to the instructor view. So this is the assignment configuration for the stats map that we were just looking at. And here we can see why the tutor was behaving the way that it was. So never give the student the answer to the question directly. If they're requesting more help, offer to create a new version of the problem. Then give that and solve it in its entirety. We have it separated out as well. So post-submission, you can have a prompt as well if you want the tutor to maybe be a little bit less helpful pre-submission, maybe a bit more helpful post-submission. You can always separate that out. I always like putting in a character limit just because LLMs tend to get pretty wordy, and we are using, in this case, GPT-5 Mini to do the tutor responses. And here we also have additional configurations for the virtual tutor, those pre-generated hints and explanations that we saw as well. So for example, if you want students to try their best first without getting support, but then if they get it correct or incorrect, then they get access to the tutor, we have that available. Maybe only after correct submission, you want them to be able to ask some follow-up questions, or maybe it's a practice exam and you want it to be never. Likewise, you can turn off and on the hints, and similarly, you can turn off and on the explanations that are part of that generation process whenever you like. I'm going to reset that. And then from here, I'm going to move over to authoring. So I have the map open. This is the map that we were just on. And this was generated using a series of prompting and then manual edits to rearrange these concepts and check the concept descriptions. This is what then anchors our question generation flow. So the flow tends to stem from, creating a concept graph, vetting that manually through prompting, or we also have file uploads. So if you have, for example, a syllabus or something like that, you can use a file there. And then from there, we generate questions by concept. And they go through an editing and vetting flow as needed. And we can see here a complete explanation, accepted answers, the hint, and that question statement, all here and vetted. So with that, I'm actually going to go through this end to end. So let's create a whole new domain and let's call this Intro to Math. And let's just do some basic arithmetic, maybe some fractions, and maybe some word problems. You can select a policy. In this case, I'm going to select a Compass policy, and this can all be managed at the admin level, budgeted out to ensure that all of the spend is being used correctly. And then once you would like to, you can share that, of course, with other people to edit with you or with courses to then use it. And let's just use a prompt. So I'm going to save that prompt for later. So let's create 10 concepts related to basic math, arithmetic, with fractions, and applications too. You can pick different models as well here, so whichever kind of works best that you've found. I like O3 Mini. It tends to do a pretty good job, and I'm going to click Generate. So this is going to go through and create concepts, create relationships between the concepts, create descriptions, that we can then use as context to generate questions. This will take a few moments. So while this is happening, I'm going to show you another deployment option. So over here, this is a single concept node. So there's no map, but what was done here instead was a file upload. So I had a PDF of word problems. I actually created this in Overleaf. So if you have questions, homework assignments that you have been giving for years, you know that you like, you don't want to lose those, you can upload those directly to Compass and then get all of the benefits of the tutor, the analytics, the interventions without needing to go through an entire concept graph creation. So the flow for that is you add new questions and you just upload from a question list. And in this case, the questions are extracted and then anything missing is generated. So if we go back here, in the interest of time, I already uploaded it. And this here we can see this is question 1. So pencils and pens in her backpack. We go back to our tab, pencils and pens in her backpack. And what has been generated is the hint, the accepted answers, and an explanation. So all of this is now ready to go through our vetting flow, including quick actions. So, you can use AI to maybe make the lengthier step-by-step solution. And all of that can then be directly input into a Compass assignment. In this case, because there isn't a map, you're probably going to be doing a question group. So once you have, let me actually just approve some questions. So once you have some approved questions, let's add 3. You can go in and create a group for students to do. So let's call this homework 1. And then add those 3 questions right there and click save. That is, with the exception of maybe a couple minutes of processing and then going through and vetting, that's a way to, go through the entire end-to-end flow and get these questions in front of students. So this is now ready to be chosen when we are configuring our assignment. So I can go in and go to, let's see, word problems. What did I call that? Question list. And that is going to be ready to be used. Oh, I'm a teacher on here, so it actually doesn't have everything. This needs to be shared with me. So that's also a way to manage access. Other people aren't going to be messing with your domains until you share it with a fellow user or a course. So in that time, it looks like we have a domain map ready to be vetted. So it's created concepts for me. I'm going to go ahead and accept and save these changes before I go through and maybe do some manual editing. We can pull these apart. We can change some of the relationships. It looks like there's maybe some duplication happening that I can go ahead and do. Or maybe I know that my class has, 3 focuses. Maybe a bunch of people in my class are interested in bioengineering and econ. I can say, let's split this up. Let's make 3 more concepts about those applications specifically. And again, this is just going to take a moment to generate all of those different pieces in order to then be able to create questions directly from these freshly generated concepts. So it looks like this is focusing in on fractions. In the meantime, I'm just going to kind of look. You can do some manual editing after. So maybe I'll rearrange to have multiplication be a prerequisite of division instead of them both having this as a prerequisite. All of those edits we can do manually in just a moment. So while that is generating, there we go. I will accept and save those changes. We can then take a look on the manual side and see awesome uses of fractions in biological contexts, such as dilution, cell population ratios, biochem concentration. My background's not in biology, but you can always tweak these prompts manually if you're like, what, I actually want them to be about, I don't know, concentration ratios or something like that. And then let's do a bit of manual editing. So let's say, you know what, I don't want division of fractions to stem off of here. I want division of fractions to stem off of multiplication. You can do that like so by rearranging those relationships. And then it's rearranged on our map. From there, we can go ahead and start creating some questions. So let's make 5 questions on, let's do simplifying fractions. We support multiple choice and free response. You can also add in a custom prompt. So in this case, I might say something like, include some fractions that are improper and some that are negative. Just to make sure that I have some variation. Again, you can always select a model. I'm going to go ahead and click generate. And this is, again, going to take a moment in the pending bucket. We can always go in at the same time and add some more. So let's now add some addition of fractions. Let's go ahead and generate. And here we can see that they are generating while we wait. So what is being generated here? Like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be all of the context that we are using. Over here, I can show one. All of this is then used as context for the tutor as well. So it's generating this problem statement, a hint, accepted answers, and an explanation all at once. So while we wait on that, let me briefly show some analytics and then we can check back in. So this is another place where the domain models or the knowledge graphs are really anchoring our learning. So in this case, rather than this being an individual student's knowledge, this is the whole courses. So if we see here, 108 students are proficient in this concept of domain and range of inverse functions, and 203 need a reminder that their homework is due soon. So you can go in as a teacher and see this and see, over here, 56% are proficient, much more students have done this homework assignment clearly, and you can see concept friction. So 75% being correct on their first try here, really promising, an average AI request rate of just 0.14. Comparing that to domain and range of inverses, that's 63% being incorrect and an average AI request of about 1 request per person. So as a teacher, I now have an at-a-glance look at what concepts I maybe want to hone in on or recommend students do some refreshing on before an exam or a quiz. We also have an analytics tab, which shows top 5, actually more than top 5, all top difficulties of concepts and questions. So here, domain and range of inverse functions, first attempt accuracy with 75 students attempting, this is something that I'm going to want to review. Whereas I think I'm pretty safe to maybe skip a review on identifying one-to-one functions. Specifically, if I want to know what questions students were struggling with, it's this one right here. So this is domain and range of this function. Find the domain and range of the inverse of the square root function. So students definitely had some tricky, a struggle there. And then we can actually see an even more challenging problem above, but the difference being that this was a challenge problem, so fewer students attempted it. So here you can go in and you can directly pull these questions. One of the use cases that we saw in one of our recent pilots was giving the top 5 questions to the TAs and asking them to do a review of them in their discussion sections. So that was a way that teachers were able to leverage this live data. So let's go back to our problems, and here they are, nice and generated. Here's some addition of fractions. So, evaluate this sum, explain your process, and then how you simplify the results. I maybe don't want them to have to explain. Maybe I want this one to just be an answer. I can go in and manually edit and just delete that. And then I also can maybe say, you know what, I like this explanation, but I want it to be a bit more detailed. I could use some of the quick action AI buttons, and that will also be done. And then again, once I'm ready, I go through and I do the vetting process. I approve or reject them. Oh, I didn't actually get a chance to edit that. It did generate that for me, that I approved it. And then as they are approved, I can then either deploy this in map form, where students are making their way through this map, or I can make question groups for those more traditional assignments. All right, with that being said, I think that I'm ready to pass it over to Mary to talk about our final question type, which is that integrated experiential learning. She's going to show us a Cloud Lab demo.
All right, great. Thank you for pulling that up, Portia. Can everyone see my screen okay? So right now I'm showing a student view of a Vocareum course, and this can be embedded in Canvas in this sort of course view, or you can embed it assignment by assignment, which Portia will show in a moment. And from the student perspective, this is how they would access their courses. So they can click on an assignment. I have 2 types of assignments in here. We're going to start with the Mastery Learning version of Compass, which Portia demoed earlier with math. So the idea here was to create a question group or a Compass deployment that would really support students who were preparing for the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner certification, which is a very standardized test that has them answer sort of rapid fire multiple choice questions, much like the one that I'm showing here. So we've generated practice questions for them. So in addition to including questions that are are very similar to the kinds of multiple choice questions that they would encounter when actually taking the test. As part of the study process, rote memorization, pedagogically is not a very sound learning technique, as I'm sure everyone knows, both from working with students and our own experience. So one of the things that we wanted to address here was how to get students really getting some hands-on AWS experience, which can be quite challenging to do, particularly for some of the more expensive tools that they might encounter. So first we have this kind of basic multiple choice question, which is going to be more like, as I mentioned, like the type they would encounter in the quiz. But we here have like all of the power of Compass that Portia was showing you earlier. So as I work through these concepts, not only are they mapped out for me so that I have a sense of what is going to be on this test and what areas of AWS I need to understand. I also have a sense of my progress through learning those. So here I have mastered the sort of basic, some of the basic questions here. And then I've started to I'm developing in security and compliance. So with the mastery path, you can decide whether you want to gate things so that students can't move on without getting through. So just to go back a second, in case anyone missed anything, I was just mentioning that this one has been configured so that the students can self-guide their learning a little bit more. So I can decide to go to a question group that I haven't mastered before and try out a question there. And so kind of decide on my own what pace I want to go at. So we're going to jump forward to EC2 network configurations, because in the earlier ones, there's a little bit more multiple choice questions. But when we get to some of the advanced ones, this is where we really start bringing in that real world hands-on experience. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to EC2 network configuration questions. So I can go back and look at my progress. This is the question list of 4 questions for this section. I got one right. I got one correct here, but let's say maybe I got it. I didn't get it so good the first time. And in that case, as Portia showed, you can get a hint. You can ask it to give you a little bit of help getting started. So here, this is a verified answer or verified hint about how I might go about answering this question. So in this case, it's actually going to it's not increasing administrative overhead, right? Instead, it's minimizing network congestion and exposure to threats. So I'll retry this problem. And so you can go ahead and like clear your old responses and retry problems as much as you want. And then go ahead and submit it.
For the trick, they randomize the students can't just blindly click.
Oh, so there you go. See, it did trick me there. So every time you retry, it's gonna randomize it. I can't just remember exactly where the question was. I have to actually read it again, right? So then I can actually get it right. So I was tricked by our own trick. And then I get the verified correct answer. That explains what's going on there. So, but the most exciting part here really is going for cloud applications is going to be this hands-on stuff. So let me pop forward to one I haven't tried yet. So this one you can see is marked as skipped. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what it actually looks like. So retrying this one, I can start the lab here. And when I'm starting this lab, what's happening is we have an AWS account connected on the back end here. And that AWS payer organization has a bunch of linked accounts. And those linked accounts are being provisioned to individual students. And a number of other things are happening too. So I was just able to open the console. You can see this is the user that was provisioned to me, this sort of temporary generated federated user. And I was securely logged in. However, I don't just have unfettered access to these AWS resources. It's been defined actually specifically which areas I can access and can't access. So I don't, for example, have access to see cost and usage for the entire organization, so I can't see what other students are spending money on. I can really only access the things that are relevant for this assignment, which includes the virtual private cloud. Another thing that is being taken care of here is budgeting. So we have controls that are ensuring that students are staying within whatever the set budget for the assignment is. And if they exceed it, their account would be disconnected, the resources would be cleaned up. And it's possible for teachers to give them additional budget, either as a group or individually if a student runs out of budget. But this just ensures that you don't overrun by accident. And we're also making sure that students aren't able to spin up more than, for example, 5:2 instances. And that kind of setting can be set at the organizational level to create some extra guardrails. But from the student's perspective, they really have this very safe sandbox. They don't have to worry about making a very expensive mistake. Everything is quite controlled, and they can just focus on going through and finishing these requirements here. And when they're done, they can just hit submit answer. So I'm actually, rather than going through a whole setup here, I'm going to show you one where I did complete one of the steps. So that you can see what happens here. So in this case, I was asked to complete this list of requirements. The only one that I actually did set up was creating this custom VPC with a CIDR block specified here. And what I got back when I submitted it was this message from the virtual tutor that was based on its evaluation of what I had actually completed, and some more information about what I might need to do next, right? And I can query it if I'm stuck, if I need help. The other thing I can see is what the AI is evaluating. So these details here are actually the data that is provided to the AI to evaluate what I have and have not created. So in here, for example, I named this VPC my VPC1, and you can see it's here in the data provided to the AI. So the student and the instructor can actually go in and see what was created, what wasn't created. If the student is like, I thought I did that, they can see that in fact they didn't, or that maybe they named it something different. So this can help them sort of investigate their own issues and understand how they're being evaluated in more detail. So this is a quite powerful tool. You can see it's also time blocked, right? So say a student was asked to spin up an EC2 instance, it's running, and they just wander away while they're on this page. It won't just keep running forever, right? There's always going to be this guardrail of time as well as budget. So really just trying to help prevent students from making mistakes that make it harder for them to use their resources later. So I'll go ahead and stop this instance that I started here. And all I have to do is hit end lab there, right? So the student can also choose to end the lab. And when we submit, it will also end the lab. So there's a number of ways to make that happen. So now we've ended the lab, you can see that the timer is gone from there. And because I have completed these two correct and attempted this one and didn't really attempt this one yet, you can see this is the 66% mastery. I have reached a threshold where I've unlocked the next concept, so I could move on from here, or I could keep working. And where that threshold is configured by the instructor. So another way that you can use this for practice for a certification, for example, so this is sort of a more self-guided learning approach, but another thing students might want to do is be able to, check out a practice exam. So another example here would be, let me go back to my options here. I'm gonna open up a exam. Here, I tried this one once before. I'm just gonna retake it. And the difference between my practice exam and what I was just working on is you can see that it is timed. And also it has been configured a little bit differently. So instead of being mastery based, it's using this question group. And I can see a couple, and I won't be able to see the others until I answer a few here. And that will help me sort of start practicing. So from jumping over to the teacher side of things, you can see this is the question group that was used to feed into that quiz. And then on the quiz configuration side, I have similar prompts to the ones that Portia was showing you. I'm giving it a little bit more leeway in terms of how many characters it's allowed to use for these more complex questions it's explaining. But you can see here, this is where I selected that question group, and I'm letting it generate 10 random questions from that question group, which I believe has 14 questions in it. And here we're only giving them any virtual tutor after they have a correct submission. So this is more to help guide them, but it has less guidance than sort of the practice self-guided learning experience. It's a little bit more like the exam itself. So those are a couple of the use cases. And one other thing I just wanted to show you from the authoring side is, how this was created. So this is the concept graph from the teacher's perspective or the course creator's perspective. Same concepts as I was seeing from the student side. And one of the things that is really cool about this is it's especially for something like the cloud practitioner exam, there's a lot of great information online about how to study for that, and official resources from AWS. So this we were actually able, our subject matter expert was able to generate it just using prompts. So there was no uploaded source material. It was entirely prompt based. And so for an example, just yesterday, I made this really basic one. I just gave it literally one prompt. I asked it to create concepts and relationships that cover the entirety of the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner exam, and it generated this chart. So I just wanted to show you them side by side. So this is the little mini one that I created yesterday with one prompt, and this is the full refined one that our subject matter expert made. So starting with that one prompt, you can see we already have quite a lot of the chart built out. We have the AWS Cloud Practitioner. We have those 4 initial concepts branching off of it. And then from there, our subject matter expert did things like asking it to add concepts, expand concepts into subdomains, etc. So you can kind of get a sense of how you build something really quite complex just using the AI. And similarly for generating the questions here, popping back over to Cloud Practitioner, you can see that these questions were generated also with the AI. Including ones like dynamic business scenarios.